Good afternoon, all. I'd like to welcome you to this meeting of the Boston Art Commission. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alexandra Paul Zotov, and I'm the Public Art Registrar within the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. In that capacity, I'm also an administrator of the Boston Art Commission. Let's just take a moment to update our names and pronouns, as well as to make sure we are muted. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. As a reminder, this is extended until 2025. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Art Commission, you can join this meeting through telephone and video conferencing. For those of you with us today, this meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is available, which you can access at the bottom of your screen. If you're having trouble locating that button, please chat us for assistance.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks everybody for being here. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone for free. And for transparency community input, artworks proposed for City of Boston property are reviewed and discussed at public meetings of the BAC on a monthly basis. Working together with the public art team in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the BAC is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 volunteer committee members appointed by the mayor. And the BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks for city property. And with that, I'd like to introduce our team. I'm Karen Goodfellow. I am the Director of Public Art in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. I'm joined by Amber Torres, the Public Art Project Manager, Liza Quinones, our mural consultant, and Paul Zotov, our Public Art Registrar. And we run the day-to-day operations of the Public Art Program for the City of Boston and facilitate the Boston Art Commission meetings. And we will add our email to the chat. And with that, I will hand off to Chair Andres.
Thanks so much, Karen, and welcome everyone. I call this public hearing to order at 4:33 p.m. Today, the Commission is holding its monthly public meeting, and our meetings are generally held on the second Tuesday of every month, and we hope you'll continue to join us. We engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is located on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people and the neighboring Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge the atrocities committed against Indigenous peoples, all of the communities that have been subsequently harmed, and the ways in which colonialism has created systemic oppression. We recognize the continuing presence of these communities and the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents, in addition to those in the diaspora. We also recognize that Boston exists as a result of the forced labor and economic extraction from enslaved African Americans. Now I'll take a roll call of the commissioners to confirm a quorum. After I state your name, commissioners, please say here. I know Camilo is not able to join us today. Cara Elliott Ortega.
Here.
Diana Fernandez Bibo.
Here.
Brian Home.
Here.
Nigel Jacob. James Mason.
Here.
Abigail Norman.
Here.
Great. We have a quorum. We can continue. On this slide, you'll see today's agenda, which is also posted publicly on the city's website. We'll now review meeting minutes from the July meeting, I believe. No, June meeting, July. Are there any comments or modifications any commissioner would like to make? Hearing none, I wonder if any commissioner would like to make a motion to approve the July meeting minutes.
I move that we approve the July meeting minutes.
Thanks, Diana. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I heard Cara, so I'll give her the second. Commissioners, after I say your name, please say yes if you support the motion. Cara?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. I'll now turn it back to Karen Goodfellow to highlight the presentations for public review and give her director's report.
Thank you, John. So we have quite a few presentations today, but we are hoping that most of them will go by pretty quickly. First, we have Up Double Hearts, a long-term artwork, which will be a presentation of final design. It's at 1001 Boylston Street and by the artist Gaetano Pesce. And the proponent is Samuel and Associates. We'll also be revealing a deeper history and intervention at the Founders Monument. And this is a temporary artwork here for final design review. And this will be on the Boston Common by artists Shonda Foster, Jenny Oliver, and Ross Miller. And it will be presented by the Friends of the Public Gardens Monument and Memory Task Force. And we have Into the Ground, Into the Body, a temporary artwork and final design at the Eggleston Square Branch Library in Roxbury, and that is by Millie Kate with a Boston Public Art Triennial. We also have the Johnson Gates Conservation to be presented, and that's in the Back Bay Fens. And we will have the proponent will be Marie Fukada from the Fenway Civic Association presenting that. And it is by Guy Lowell. And then we have a bunch of acceptances of artworks proposed. We've seen these murals a few times this summer, so don't worry. These will be quick presentations, don't be scared, but we have Ilahak Halaken, the long-term mural at the Guild in East Boston, and we have the Omana Rising, also in East Boston at the Mario Mana Academy. That one is by Felipe Ortiz. The last one, sorry, is by Spike, Israel Guerrero, Romero, and then we have a few more to go over a few other murals. We go to the next slide. We have Bria by Silvia Lopez Chavez at the Hernandez in Roxbury, and we have Garden of Beginnings and Roots of Empowerment at Lee Academy in Dorchester by Don Rymix. And finally, Together We Rise, another long-term project as part of Canvas of Culture by Thomas Detour Evans, and that is at the Kilmer in West Roxbury. And we have a number of different updates for projects in fabrication. You can see here a lovely image from Lemerci Fraser's project coming up for Engine 42. But we also have updates for Journey of My Soul, the Legacy of Frederick Douglass, which was initiated by the United Neighbors of Lower Roxbury and the Frederick Douglass Sculpture Committee. Representatives Nataka Creighton and Aziza Robinson Goodnight hosted a community event this past weekend to share the final plaza design with local residents and business owners. RSC and Sasaki have completed designs of the foundations, and MOAC will begin researching concrete companies who specialize in this scope of work needed for this project. In the meantime, Public Works will work to finalize construction documents for the plaza. The Vine Street interior mural by Destiny Palmer in Roxbury at the Vine Street BCYF. Amber has been working with Executive Director David Hinton and Pat McDonough from Property Management to explore the possibility of installing the mural before June 2024. But that was not able to go forward. And so we are trying to find a new installation date and we'll be securing a new vinyl production company. And then the call and response, the image on your screen, rating safety by Lemerci Fraser for Engine 42 in Eggleston Square. It's been cut and the welding is nearly complete. And once it's done, the team will arrange a final site visit to test lighting, and then the final step will be to bead blast the artwork. And the target installation is still this fall for this artwork. So we're hoping to get that done. On Coconut Grove Memorial Project in Statler Park and Bay Village, the artist team Resite has moved forward with finalization of contracts and will complete construction documents and begin fabrication this fall. And artist Wenti Sen hosted a studio visit of his Chinatown Workers statue project for Chinatown in late August, and one full-scale figure is nearly prepared for casting and stone selection for support elements being finalized. So we're moving ahead with that artwork and the next phases of that work will be really focused on the site. So as you can imagine, that project with the 4 sites, it's going to take a good amount of planning. And so we're very happy to be moving forward with that. And then next up, the way we're going to do that work is that we are growing our team. And so we're very happy to share some good news today that we are continuing to grow the public art team. Birgit Worster joins the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture as a Senior Public Art Project Manager. She has a background in architecture and design with over 10 years of experience working for the MBTA, managing wayfinding design projects and art program maintenance and development. Her educational and professional work has been centered around design and art as a means to advance equity and uplift the everyday experiences of residents and visitors in Boston. So welcome, Birgit. We are also very happy to welcome Erin Genia, who is joining the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture as the Indigenous Public Art and Cultural Spaces Consultant. For the next 2 years, she'll work alongside the public art team in order to inform the City of Boston's public art commissioning program and governmental approaches to art, property, and land in Boston. Through this work, in addition to the explorations we're doing through temporary monuments and public conversations in Unmonument, we are reevaluating the distorted history expressed through the landscape of public art and monuments that favors colonial representations of history and fact. We're beginning a process of engaging with Native American and Indigenous artists to prevent harm from revisionist retellings of history, developing a process that includes local and regional tribes and consults with established tribal historians to engage with Boston's landscape to make the process more equitable and inclusive. In the first year, we'll focus on review, research, and development of recommendations, especially around our policies and commissioning practices. And the second year, we'll focus on participatory and iterative implementation of her recommendations and lessons learned from year 1. Other efforts will include providing education and training resources to staff and BAC members on the significance of Native American art in the public sphere to stop representations that can directly affect and harm tribal nations and people.
Hi, I just wanted to say a quick hello and thank you. I'm really excited to be part of the important work happening here in Boston in my new role. And just a little bit about me, I'm a former Boston artist in residence, and as a Native American artist, tribal member of the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate, I frequently work with organizations to foster greater and more equitable engagement with Native American and Indigenous artists. And I will be attending BAC meetings regularly, so I look forward to seeing you and working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. And lastly, one more update on staffing. After over 16 years of acting as director of the Boston Art Commission, I'm sharing that I'll be transitioning to the role of Director of Transformative Art and Monuments, staying in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. And we will be searching for a new Director of Public Art. In this way, we're growing our capacity. In my new role, I'll continue to lead on Monument and the creation and implementation of policies and projects related to the reimagining of Boston's public art and monument landscape, and set the vision and direction of the public art team is related to this work and working with all these wonderful folks. However, I will no longer be the director of the Art Commission, and that honor will shift with many other wonderful aspects of this work to the new director of public art. And we can share a link in the chat so that you can share it. The position is going to be open, I think, till the 27th of August. So please do share it. And then we just have a couple other updates. We've been very busy as usual. The DeWitt Playground at Madison Park Athletic Complex in Roxbury, the project with Studio Luz and Marlon Forrester, they've completed their grant agreement and provided certificates of insurance to move forward with fabrication. For Engine 17 in Dorchester, the director of A&F, Sam Fiddler, is actively working to finalize the contract with artist Michelle Gutlove, and who will begin preliminary designs as soon as that's done. And construction was completed on the fire station, and we look forward to the inclusion of the long-term artwork. We also hope that you can join us to the Gun Violence Memorial Project reception, which is going to be at City Hall on September 17th from 6:30 to 8:30. And we will drop a link in the chat so that you can RSVP. And on conservation, our host, Dr. Daedalus Conservation, Josh Crane, will be joining us to provide an overview of our conservation work that will be forthcoming. And we also just wanted to share, as you can see on the screen, we've been doing some really exciting work. Paul Zotov, our public art registrar, is especially excited about this, but we have some Create a Kent conservation work happening at the Harvard Kent School. And we're really excited about that. And I think you're going to keep hearing more about it. But we also have ongoing work at Faneuil Hall on the Webster's reply to Hain, and we will share more about that next month. Gianfranco Pocobene has been doing some exciting work, and Daedalus will be sharing his timeline and priorities for FY25. Josh?
Hi. So I was just asked to walk through some of the projects that we're really excited about working on coming up in next year, starting in the spring. And I'm going to give a brief overview of the pieces and sort of what we're planning on doing to each one. I'm happy to answer any questions when I'm done. The first one we're going to start off with in May is the Judge. It's a painted Ferris material. We're gonna do some much needed repairs to it. There's some open seams, some places where the paint is blistering. We're gonna repaint it and clean it up so go back to the original aesthetic. The next one we're gonna be working on is Cyrus Dahlin's Paul Revere, which is in the North End. And it was last treated maybe 20 years ago. It's a bronze sculpture. It needs to be cleaned of degraded coating. There's some damage to the underside of the bronze that needs to be filled and repaired. We're going to repatinate the surface and do some treatment to the pedestal, which includes repointing and cleaning the surface. The next one is starting in June as well, and that's going to be Dorchester Voices, which is a multi-material piece in Dorchester, in Edward Everett Square, and people know it as the Pear, but there's also a number of other smaller elements that go around it, which are ferrous materials and bronze and some stonework. The iron materials that are holding up some of the bronze pieces are in disrepair, and we're going to clean those up. We're going to repair them, repaint them. The bronze elements are going to be repatinated and recoated. The granite is going to be cleaned, repointed. There's some lettering in there that's going to be repainted. And while we're doing that, we're going to work on Edward Everett by William Story. It's an old bronze sculpture as well, like Cyrus Dahlin, and some of the same treatments are going to go on with that. The bronze is going to be cleaned of old degraded coating, repatinated, and the granite pedestal is going to be touched up and repaired as needed. And then, in July in Horatio Harris Park, we're going to work on Jim Miller Melberg's Turtle, which is a mid-century concrete play structure that was sort of they were put all over the country. There's not a lot of them left. And it's got some damage to the concrete. It's been painted several times. The paint's going to be stripped, and we're going to repaint it to sort of the original aesthetic. And then moving along, in Charlestown, Lucille Stubbs' sundial is bronze and granite, and the bronze is going to be cleaned and repatinated. Some of the granite has sort of moved out of line in the sundial, and we're going to reset some of those granite pieces and fill the joints and clean that one up again. And finally, Josiah Quincy, Thomas Ball, that's at the old City Hall, and another bronze sculpture. Same sort of bronze treatment. It's got a really interesting pedestal, which is made of breccia, which you don't see a lot of objects made from. And it's going to be sort of exciting to kind of do a little work in treating that. There's a couple other bronze panels on that. They're also going to be cleaned and repatinated and coated. And that's the gist. It's going to be a busy summer. We're looking forward to diving into some of these projects.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. And with that, we have an opportunity for any questions, general questions that we might get. And these are at the discretion of Chair Andress, and obviously depending on time allowance.
Well, this moment is meant for general questions just about the BAC. So if no one has any questions at this moment, we can move along, but we will keep this segment in our meeting each month so that if any questions do come up, you as members of the public are free to ask them here. But why don't we go ahead and move forward with the
John, I do
meeting.
think Abigail had her hand up.
Oh, did you, Abigail? Sorry, I missed that. Go ahead, Abigail.
Thank you, John. I just wanted to put in a request for an orientation for new commissioners. So I've officially been on the commission since December, and I would love to be oriented. I also understand there's a new planning director coming on board that's very exciting, in addition to excellent news about Brigitte and Erin. And I wonder if, when that happens, if the commission could meet with the planning director and understand what their scope of work is and their mandate. And finally, I'd like to make a request about BAC events. So I had the pleasure of attending a talk at the Embrace a few weeks ago, very, very wonderful, with an excellent community dinner afterwards, really lovely. But I'm finding that that I'm hearing about events just a couple of days before they happen. I'd love to hear about them farther in advance so that it would be possible to attend more. They're really impressive, and I'm proud to be associated with them, but they kind of creep up on me quickly. Thank you.
Good, all good points and requests, Abigail, so we can follow up on those. But thank you. Well, moving on to the next agenda items, I first wanted to welcome Birgit and Erin. It's so wonderful to have you join us for this important and amazing work we do alongside artists. And Josh, thank you so much for your conservation update. Conservation is so important to the health of a collection, so we very much appreciate hearing from you and for the work that you and your organization will do for our collection. We'll now move on to the agenda items for review, public testimony, and commission vote. Here is how you can participate in today's meeting. I think if you could forward the slide, Paul. If you have technical difficulties, you can ask questions in the chat and a member of staff will help you. When public testimony is requested, you can press the raise your hand icon and we will call on you. If you were calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. Our goal is to make this meeting a good experience for all. Please remember to keep your comments on topic brief and respectful of others. You can submit longer written testimony to BAC at boston.gov. If you were called on, please state your name, title, program, and organization if relevant. And our first project for discussion will be introduced by Seth Reisman, Deputy Director of Design Review at the City of Boston Planning Department. Seth, I'll pass this off to you.
Great, thank you very much, and good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having me. I'm here tonight to frame the presentation you're about to see within the context of a larger conversation between the Planning Department and the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, and around the Planning Department's policy, process, and guidance when it comes to public art on privately owned buildings or sites. There is a long history in Boston of leveraging private development projects to create publicly accessible but privately owned spaces, including one of the newest and perhaps one of the more successful, we hope, of these spaces at 1001 Boylston Street, otherwise known as Parcel 12, which spans the turnpike in the Back Bay. And you will hear more about that from the project developer in a minute. These projects go through a rigorous public process. Public benefits, such as open space, are typically provided in exchange for additional height and density. We want to more systematically encourage the inclusion of public art in these spaces. So in cooperation with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, we are seeking to develop clear policy, process, and guidance to support projects in service of this. The project you are about to see tonight helped to spur this conversation. So though it did not go through the process we will be developing with MOAC, we felt it important to share the proposal with you. The planning department looks forward to coming back in front of the commission in the coming months once our policy is better formed. And now I would like to turn it over to the development team from Samuels and Associates. Just a little bit more background. The planning department has been working with this team for over a decade, since they were designated for this Turnpike Air Rights site back in 2012 by MassDOT. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Seth. Thank you, commissioners. I'm Abe Menzen with Samuels and Associates. We are the developer of Parcel 12. As Seth noted, we have been at work for over a decade, about 12 years so far, transforming what was air rights over the Mass Turnpike and railroad tracks on the west side of Mass Ave between Newbury Street and Boylston Street into a public plaza, two-level plaza, flanked by a new office and hotel project. So we've been engaged for many, many years. The plaza itself was actually an outgrowth of public outreach and planning process. It was actually the concept that the neighborhood brought to us and that we thought was brilliant. And as we have reached completion of the project, I don't know if people are around Open Newbury, yes, over the weekend, we've now taken down the fence along Mass Ave, and people are able to climb the steps and go out to the park that you see with the trees over the highway. It really dawned on us that this was an area befitting of a public art installation. It's a gateway into the city from the west, and it's highly visible from Mass Ave. So we have felt an immense debt of gratitude to the neighborhood around us for their support over the years. And this is a gesture that we hope speaks to everyone and is really a signature location. So with that, I will turn it over to Molly, who is going to talk a little bit more specifically about the art itself.
Thanks so much, Abe. Hi, I'm Molly Epstein from Goodman Taft, and Abigail Ross Goodman is also on the call today, and we're delighted to be joining you. Hello, all. We've had the pleasure and privilege of collaborating with Samuels and Associates over the last decade on a number of projects, and we're honored to be invited to be their thought partners for this exercise as well. So this site map shows you where the red oval is, where the sculpture is meant to be installed. And if we move along to the next slide, just to articulate some of the objectives of the site as set out from the beginning. And we've been engaged with Samuels and Associates since January of 2023 in this discussion, so for quite some time. So this will be privately owned. Sorry, if we can just go back. This will be privately owned and privately maintained artwork installed in open, publicly accessible space. We were thinking about values of people, community, inclusivity, diversity, and belonging. The artwork as a voluntary gesture of gratitude, of love, warmth, and creating a welcoming, gate-worthy experience that would be viewable from the plaza, the Pike, and Mass Ave. as really a beacon to invite the general public up into the plaza and up to the deck, and a gesture that would speak universally to all for locals and tourists alike. This illustrates some of our previous work, and Cara, we were so honored back in June of 2019 that you helped us open the Nicole Eisenman installation in the Fenway, and to have worked closely with Samuels and Associates on various placemaking initiatives, from works by Hank Willis Thomas and Alexandra de Cunha as well. We were thrilled to come on board as the curators and really embarked on the selection process with equity in mind. We looked at a global group of artists, over 30 in total, from Nigeria to Haiti, London to Iran. And we also knew that due to the nature of the air rights site, there were factors around weight, size, wind, scale, and placement that were part of the decision-making process. And all of these led to the selected artwork, thinking about the importance of the location that would reflect our community and also stand the test of time. So working closely with Samuels and Associates, a work by Tano Pesce, the Italian-born artist who sadly passed away just in April of this year, was selected. The work is titled Double Heart, and it will be an iconic sculpture that celebrates connection, warmth, and care. Pesce, who was a giant in the fields of both art and design, stated that, "I believe that the treasure of the world is diversity. If we are the same, we cannot talk because there is nothing to say. But if you and I are different, there's a lot to exchange." And that is the artist pictured on the left. Many of you, of course, will be familiar with him and his work. This is a rendering from the pedestrian perspective of the upper plaza. And if we move through the next grouping of slides, at night, it will be illuminated from within. And Pesce actually designed a lamp in the late 60s from which he drew inspiration for this work, which we first encountered in the fall of 2023 in Paris, where it was installed in the Jardin des Tuileries, and taken by the universal symbol. We worked closely with the artist and his studio to come up with a site-responsive new scale for the work for Boston. Here it is installed in Paris. Of course, his work is collected widely and held by institutions across the globe, including our own MFA Boston, which owns many of his chairs and design works as well. These are several installation shots of the work at night, and the next slide shows it installed in Biarritz in the south of France. So the work was really created for the site. It will be fabricated specifically with the site in mind, and the community's input on creating the sunset deck. And once it is in situ, Double Heart will be the only permanent public sculpture by Pesce in the States. It's also the very last major sculptural work that he conceived of during his lifetime. Here's another view as well. So the Pesce studio is based in Brooklyn, and the fabrication team for this project is based in Italy. The materials will be fiberglass, resin, metal, concrete, and the light bulbs in the interior, and the dimensions are stated here. We are doing some final wind studies and assessments that will determine the final weight as well as the final dimensions, but this gives you a sense of the scale. And this is an aerial view, again, to identify where the sculpture will be sited on the sunset deck at Lyric. We have a few more views. Here's an elevation. And the daytime view from the Pike. You know, in our work with Samuels, we talk a lot about private investment for public good. And we were very cognizant in thinking about this project in particular, with its visibility, its impact, and its capacity to be a symbol for the city. And it's been exciting to think about how it will function and perform in the future. both from this view for drivers and passengers alike, as well as for visitors and pedestrians. Here's a nighttime view, another daytime view up close. Many renderings. So from an installation perspective, we will be working in close collaboration with Pesce's studio, with his estate, and with his gallery representation, and we'll be working to finalize a site and installation plan in concert with the local team that's been working on the Lyric site. And the work will be installed by a local rigging and fine art installation company that's anticipated for summer 25 currently. And from a conservation and maintenance perspective, of course, something we think about very carefully and rigorously, of course, for anything in public space. Samuels will be carrying 100% of the cost to maintain, clean, and care for this gesture, and there's no request for city support for any maintenance. For all of our projects with Samuels, we've been lucky to work with Rika Smith, who is a sculpture conservator in the area and specializes in the treatment and maintenance of works of art in public space. And she and her team will also be the port of call to manage and clean any graffiti or vandalism that might occur. Of course, daily inspections will be performed visually by the property operations team. So before we conclude, I wanted to say that throughout our partnership with Samuels, they have demonstrated great commitment to local artists and many local initiatives, which Abe can speak to as well, in addition to bringing the work of globally renowned artists to the city of Boston. And in thinking about Pesce, one of our colleagues who curated a show back in 2022 wrote the following, which we thought we would leave with the committee just as a closing statement. One of the key principles of Pesce's artistic philosophy is the idea that the contemporary age is defined by continuous change, curiosity, uncertainty, and innovation. The artist thus seeks to reflect and give form to these forces, employing fluid materials that allow him to pursue objects that, in his words, are sincere and truthful to their epoch. So, epoch. So we are excited to share this project with all of you and forthcoming with the city. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Molly, and Seth and Abe for your presentation. It's great to see that artwork. I now open it up to any commissioners. This project will not be voted on, but I do appreciate, Molly, you bringing it to us so that you can hear what the BAC has to say, as well as, maybe more importantly, members of the public. So very much appreciated. And so now I'll open it up to any commissioners with questions or comments. Molly, I did actually have a question for you. In the installations in France, I see that it comes on a base, but in the installation images that you've shown me, is it just going directly into the concrete?
Yeah, thanks for that, John. And I don't know, Paul, is it easy to scroll back to one of the renderings? Yes, exactly. So
okay.
In discussions with the Samuels team and with the studio and the artist when he was still with us, we did talk about eliminating the base so that the work would really be sitting flush on the ground and it wouldn't be separated by a large plinth or pedestal. So that was a decision that was made in concert with the studio and with Pesce himself. And again, we were so glad that he was involved in those discussions so that the design and the proposal were done, with his blessing and his involvement. But yes, in the past, because they were installed on a temporary basis, both in Paris and in Biarritz, the pedestal was part of that installation.
And just to follow up, Cara, I see your hand, but just to follow up quickly, do you know, because it's going directly into the concrete, is there enough space on all sides to make it ADA compliant?
Abe, do you want to?
I know that we've been engaged in making sure, like, vision impaired, there's protection there. In terms of the area all around the Hearts is ADA compliant. There's actually a very significant elevator that's focal point of the plaza that takes you up to the plaza, and then this is in a accessible zone.
Okay, great. Just enough for a wheelchair to be able to sort of.
Yeah.
move through and around that sculpture so they can participate as well. Great, thank you. Kara? I think you're muted, Kara.
I am muted. Okay. I'm just curious that as people come in on the highway and like pass under this, particularly in the evening, like they're going to see this kind of like glowy red blob, as they go by. And I'm just wondering, as a town, I feel like people like to make a big deal out of these things. Like it will become something that people comment on, like people might be like, what is that? Or they'll, because I think it won't necessarily be clear, right? Unless you're seeing it in the daytime or kind of like on foot, which is maybe fine. But I'm just curious how you guys will share information about what it is. Like, I don't know, or have you thought about like what that perception will be like?
Thanks for the question, Cara. Absolutely, there'll be a very different experience of the work from afar than up close. In the previous projects in the Fenway, we did have signage as well as some interpretation that was shared. Abe, I think you can maybe speak to some of the MassDOT conversations given nighttime and driving and questions there. But certainly it's our intent that the experience of the sculpture be meaningful for visitors who are able to access it up close and also are interested and curious from afar. So it's certainly part of our installation strategy and planning, as well as circulating information to a broader public so that is accessible regardless of how you encounter the object.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we do have the ability to play with the light levels in the structures, where the intent is not for it to be overwhelming, to fit into a park that's lit and not, overwhelm anything. So I think we'll have to sort of mock up and play with lighting levels to make sure we get the right balance there. And our hope is that when you're close enough to it, that it will be the message. The two hearts is kind of an important symbolic message. So I think making sure that that's legible, obviously not from Boylston, Brighton, but maybe, closer in would be great.
I would also add that some of the photos are not particularly doing the best service. Some of the ones we included in the evening shots were actually pulled from social media based on how it was circulated while on view in Paris. If you go back, I think one more. Abby, actually, who's on the call, experienced the work in person in Paris, and perhaps she can give a little more color to the encounter, because these do seem more blob-like and blurry than we would say the work is in actuality.
Well, and I don't know that it's necessarily like a bad thing, right? Like people might see it and get used to it and then find out later, like there's a little bit of discovery around what it is. But yeah, I'm just curious how it'll actually be perceived, and then what the communications is around it as people kind of get used to it. And I can imagine it becoming recognizable, even if people aren't quite sure what it is yet. So it's kind of an interesting thing to have to, I guess, like see reactions to in real time.
I don't want to reiterate, I know everyone's close on time, just to say the lived experience of the natural eye is different than the photographic eye of the camera. But we take all the feedback and we'll make sure too that there is the proper materials available in ways that are accessible to the public.
Thanks, Abby and Molly. I'd now like to open it up to any members of the public who would like to speak. Richard.
Oh yes, my hand went up that fast. I went up to the plaza a couple of weeks ago. It's really wonderful. And I'm concerned that this is I don't know who the landscape architects were. I'd like to know the names of the landscape architects of those plazas. They're very, very good. A great deal of thought was done in the plantings, in the raised spaces. And I'm just concerned that this is just an add-on. I mean, it looks like a Klaus Oldenburg that just somebody brought in, but I'm just concerned that it irritates me because it doesn't have any respect to the landscaping and an enormous amount of thought was brought into, and I'd like to know the names of the landscape architects again, of the trees which are going to grow, the shrubberies, the grasses. It's a brilliant design over a plaza. And this I think is just an intrusion. The sculpture by the Pierce is not an intrusion. It's a great addition. It's very exciting. You know, I gallop across the street to see it every time because it's always exciting. This to me is an unfortunate add-on, and I'm disappointed that it didn't. It seems to me that it doesn't. And maybe you did talk with the landscape architects. I don't know, but that plaza is all landscape architect. It's all planting. So I'm just concerned about that. If you don't mind, I'm sorry to be so cranky, but I really love that plaza. It's just brilliant.
Richard, thanks so much for your comment. I'll let Molly or Abe respond to you.
Abe, do you want to take this one?
Sure. No, thanks for the comments about the plaza. We love the plaza as well. We're really excited about it. We've been working with Keith LeBlanc Jones as the landscape architect for the project. He has been involved all along the way at every step of the process, and not to put words in his mouth, but I think he's as excited about the art as we are.
Any other members of the public who'd like to make a comment?
I had a quick question. I'm wondering, since the piece is a light fixture, has there been any effort to consider bird strike or any impact on insects or pollinators or the wildlife? I recognize it's on a bridge, but just wondering if that was part of the consideration.
Thanks for your question, Erin, and congratulations on your new post. Nice to meet you. I think much as we have some work left to do on the wind study to finalize some site specs for installation, we can certainly take a moment to consider wildlife and the natural environment that the work will be inhabiting, and we can raise those questions.
Thank you.
Well, I know we do have a packed agenda today, so I think we should move to the next project. But Seth, Abe, Molly, thank you so much for bringing this. Greatly appreciated, and best of luck as you move forward.
Thank you
So much, John. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you all.
And now I'll pass to Karen, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. This next project, Revealing a Deeper History intervention at the Founders Monument, speaks to some of the themes we will be exploring through our monument, with which we are partnering with the Friends in relation to their Monument and Memory Task Force, though this particular project is not part of Unmonument. And before Liz, Shonda, Jenny, and Ross present, I wanted to share that we did receive a request for them to consider including a statement about the artwork not being representative of all Native voices. And with that, I will pass to them for their presentation.
Thank you, Karen. It's good to be here. We're excited about this project and about the larger context of looking at the monuments in our parks. The Friends of Public Art takes care of the monuments in the Boston Common, the Public Art, and Commonwealth Avenue Mall. There are 43 pieces of public art we take care of. And our intention here was to look at several monuments over the next couple of years and interrogate them to understand what their impact is on a diverse community, what the stories are they are telling, and more importantly, the stories that they're not telling. So the particular one that we chose, which we thought was a really great one to start and to be as a pilot, was the Founders Monument. And it is a public dialogue, as it says, about the untold Indigenous history and voices in our parkland. So we can move to the next slide, Paul. So as I said, we're looking at critically examining the monuments in our parks, and it came out of the work that we did for the Shaw 54th Memorial, when we worked with the Museum of African American History, the National Park Service, and the city to not just restore that monument 5 years ago, but to use it as a platform for dialogue on race and social justice. I think we have a great opportunity and actually a responsibility to look at our monuments in broader and deeper ways than just the bronze and stone that exist in the spaces. And as I said, we chose the Founders Monument, so you can move to the next slide. The Founders Monument, so I just will tell you about the artists, and they are not here, but I'm happy to answer questions and refer them back to them if you have questions that I can answer later. But we have Shonda Foster, a filmmaker, storyteller, producer, and director. She's a member of the Massachusetts tribe, but she also identifies as Black and has both Wampanoag and Nipmuc blood in her, as does Jenny Oliver. The two happen to be cousins. Jenny is an artist, dancer, choreographer, and teacher, works at Tufts. She has worked also at Emerson. Ross Miller is a public artist. I think you are familiar with him. He's been working in the public space for several decades, and he works with the Massachusetts tribal members and has worked with the Wampanoag tribal members on the fish weir installation on Boston Common. He has also been working with us on a number of different projects and installations over the years. So we can move to the next slide. This monument is along Beacon Mall. You see the yellow arrow that points to it. It's a very intensively passed monument. Beacon Mall has thousands of people, tens of thousands of people that pass it every day. It is probably the most popular monument for tourists to have their picture taken in front of it in the summertime. Of all the monuments in the three parks, this one seems to speak to that symbolism of the beginning of the country, the revolutionary spirit, the Puritans, the founding of Boston. So it really is, and it's actually architecturally, it's a beautiful piece of art. But many public tours start at this site as well. And here I just wanted to point out the bronze relief and the images on the bronze relief. The circle is indicating two Native Americans on the left-hand side. This was unveiled in 1930 to celebrate the tercentenary of Boston's founding. And the people in the center on the left-hand side is William Blackstone, who was living on the land. On the right is the Puritans led by John Winthrop, who are exchanging a greeting, and the indication is that they are exchanging the land. And when this was unveiled, one of the media accounts talked about the happy Indians on the left-hand side. So we realized that this was a story that centers the white people in the story, that centers the settler story, that really, displaces and puts off to the side the Native American story. Native Americans have lived on our lands, on our land of Boston and Boston Common for 12,000 years. And we realized that we needed to take that story and center the Native American story. So we are doing a number of different engagements with the monument as an intervention. The first thing we're doing is veiling it. And that is being done by Ross Miller. And it's the opposite action to an unveiling of a monument. When a new monument is showed, it's unveiled. So what we're going to be doing is veiling it to draw attention to the public about the story and invite them to take a deeper look and see what might not be revealed and what might be revealed by the history that's not centered in this monument. So you can take the next one, Paul. We did a lot of thinking about the material because, again, we wanted to be careful about the monument. Josh Crane, I'm not sure if Josh is on now, but we've talked to him about being careful with the monument, which he takes care of. So it's going to be an opaque white, low reflection, fireproof material, which is professionally sewn as a theatrical level monument or material that's bound with rope. And it's also was tested for its ability to have a video projected onto it. And we're going to be veiling that. I'll show you the schedule in a minute, but it will be veiled the day before the 4 days of the intervention, which is going to be the last week of September. So Shonda, in collaboration with the animation company Digital Fiction, looked at three themes, one which was land. The most important thing is about relationship to land, because we, the Friends, care for these three parks. We are land stewards, and we have a lot to learn from the Native American relationship to land. That one line that she's going to be putting in the projection is, we don't own the land, we are the land. And so it's about land, it's about displacement, and ultimately that Native Americans are still very much here. So this is just a title slide, and the storyboard has evolved since this, but it shows we choose, and yes, let's go to this one. And it shows that the projection will start with the image of the Founders Memorial, Founders Monument, and then a wind will swirl. There's going to be, you know, sound accompanying this, and it blows away that image to the land, pre-colonial land of the Common. Another thing to just note is that Joe Bagley, our city archaeologist, has been very involved with us in this whole project and been very helpful. And then that land is going to be populated by Native Americans. And again, it is an interpretation. It's not meant to be a particular tribe. It's meant to be Native American living on the land that became the Boston Common, fishing. There's a Missoon on the left-hand side, farming. There's a image of the Three Sisters Garden on the right. And then the next slide shows more animation. And then the wind will escalate into a hurricane, and then colonial settlement will start moving into the scene. And that's, again, an expression, but not a literal expression, of settler buildings coming in and displacing the natives who are living there. It will end with one Native American alone in the middle of that image. And then at the end, there will be the Founders Monument image again, and then a large Native in the front with silhouettes of people walking by the monument, to say that this is very much a present story. It's not a past story. It's not about the vanishing people. It's about people who are very much alive and well and with us today, of various tribes. But again, it's about land, it's about displacement, it's about declaring that there is still that story here very much alive. So the next image. So we're working with Illuminous to do the projection, and just sort of some practical things. The projector is going to be across Beacon Mall on the grass. Jenny Oliver will be doing a movement piece to begin, and she's going to be moving down that path and around the monument before the animation begins. We are working very close with the Parks Department about light and decibel levels, and we're going to be very careful to make sure that we're sensitive to that, because as an organization, we hear from the neighborhood a lot when there are, you know, events happening on the Common, because there can be a lot of loud sound going into the night. So we're very sensitive to the needs to make this audio part of this audio-visual experience loud enough for people to hear it, but not so loud as to disturb the people that live across the street. Next slide. And Jenny will do a 30-minute pre-event on that Wednesday night, which is the opening night, somatic activity with the public. And then when we begin, she'll be doing a 20-minute movement piece, again, moving down across the Beacon Mall and then around on either side of the monument before the projection begins. Next. We have, again, worked very closely with the Parks Department. We have a special events permit from them. Landmarks said it was exempt from them. And Josh Crane, as I said, is working closely with us to make sure that the way we're managing this veiling is respectful of the monument. We have done a lot of work with engaging the public and alerting them. We're alerting our immediate neighbors in the community around to make sure they're clear about what's going on. They know what's going on. We've been talking to all tour groups. When we did a test run of this months ago in the spring, we brought up a piece of material and ropes, and we started, you know, imagining. We threw the canvas over and started putting ropes on. And pretty soon a park ranger showed up, and I said, Emily, what's up? And she said, well, somebody was concerned about whether there was someone down here doing something wrong or bad to a monument, you know, maybe defacing a monument. So it's going to be really important for us in the run up. We've been doing a lot of social media and e-news and announcing about this work, so that when it does actually happen, when we do the installation and the experience, people will know that this is what it's about. We're having signage by the monuments and throughout the Common, and we have a web page, and that we'll have a QR code to link to that website to have more information in there. And again, as I said before, we're going to be very sensitive to light and sound when we do this work. So the test and the performance rehearsal and the veiling is going to be Tuesday, September 24th. The opening event is 5 to 8 on Wednesday, September 25th. And then the next 3 nights, we talked about having it during the week and also on a weekend to make sure the families could come. And we had a variety of opportunities for people to come and experience that. And then at the end of Saturday, that evening, we'll be deinstalling the veil. Next. We're going to be very, very watchful about what happens. We're going to be encouraging people to engage with us through social media. If they have comments to make, to please put it on this website and on social media so that we can have an engagement with people about what they think, but to discourage them from actually writing on this. And if it happens, we're going to be working with Daedalus to get recommendations for maintenance and for cleaning it. And we're going to be taking that equipment down every day. So the projector and all the material, all the material that we need to support the projection will go into our office at the end of the day and come out the next evening. So there will not be anything stored on site. Next. So in conclusion, I just want to say that we're very excited about this. We're excited about taking a story that has been, somebody mentioned, I think, Karen, at the beginning, you talked about, how many monuments are focusing on the colonial history and frankly on male stories and not the variety of stories that we need to be telling in our public spaces, because this is a powerful expression in a public space. So we're looking forward to intervening in that public expression, encouraging people to engage with that public expression, and hearing what people have to say.
Thanks so much, Liz. I'll open it up now to commissioners. And Cara, I see your hand up.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. And first of all, just really appreciate all the effort behind engaging with this piece. I think it's one that we definitely have to just reckon with and have other interpretations of and have conversations around. So Liz, really appreciate you bringing this. So I think my questions, I have big questions, like big picture questions, but I think specifically I'm curious about the representation in the projection, because it seems like it's very sort of generalized. And I think one of the things in the artwork as it is that the indigenous people who are represented are like, we don't know who they are, right? There's like an allegorical figure. There's the two people on the left, like that you pointed out, but we know like who the colonial figures are, right? Like they're historically specific. And I think in all of the memorial work that we've been doing and the conversations we've been having, we've been talking about the importance of specificity and of specific histories and actually really understanding who those individuals are, who are we really representing. But it seems like, and I don't know how final, those seem like maybe they're sketches or like initial ideas. So but I'm curious, like how much specificity is actually in the projection. I get a little bit concerned if it feels sort of generalized, that it's not kind of like taking us to the level of detail that we need in order to really like expand our thinking on all the topics that are contained in it. So I'm curious about that piece, like aesthetically, and then or maybe there's other content that goes with this that's a part of the education that gets into more detail. If you could speak to that.
There'll be a lot of background. There's a lot on the website. We've done a lot of work on researching the history, the indigenous history of Boston. So we have a lot of that material to share on the website. But I think Shonda, as I said, she's a Massachusetts tribal member, but very much identifies as Black and has Wampanoag and Nipmuc blood. And we know that there's complications about whose story is being told and who belongs and doesn't belong. So she intentionally wanted this to be expressive and interpretive and have a big picture story about Native Americans living on this land. So the final iteration of her work will be more specific. She's also going to have this "we don't own the land, we are the land" a line on top of it. But she really wanted people to be rooted in the truths of how do we relate to land and what has happened over time and what is the situation today currently. So I don't think she wanted to be deeply representational, but that is her artistic choice that she's made. And we talked about that as well.
Any other commissioners with comments?
I can jump in. John, I just had a quick comment and thank you, Liz, for the presentation. I guess this is a little bit of a clarification. I think it's really interesting to see you really trying to compose here kind of a palimpsest of histories like in real time, right? And kind of walking us through that. So it's really interesting. I'm just wondering what the daytime experience will be, right? Because it is a digital activation. I think there's something to, when most people are kind of engaged in the space, how do they get the benefit of that sort of, palimpsest, right, that you're trying to bring forward here in terms of, how you want to display this work and the importance of the messaging behind it?
Great question, Diana. I appreciate it. We talked about that. We really want to have the signage be arresting and inviting and creating curiosity. And again, people will be able to go to the QR code, go on the website, go to social media. You're absolutely right. I think the thing that will be confronting them and they'll be needing to ask questions about is a veiled monument. And I think the signage is going to be, we're going to ask a lot of the signage to really engage people and invite people to ask that question and go deeper into it through the website. But you're right, because it's a projection, we needed to do it during the times when it was most effective at the end of the day.
And I think one last point here is you may want to look into some of the augmented reality technology that's out there, because you may be able to get that sort of daytime experience through the augmented space. And that could be something that can enhance the experience for those that, want to kind of move around it.
You're absolutely right. And we did an AR app for the Shaw 54th Memorial, and we actually had it in our initial concept, but all of this got very expensive and time consuming. And then we had to put that into the parking lot, if you will. But definitely AR would be a wonderful way for people to access this, not just during the day, but also when they're remote from the site to be able to call it up. Yeah.
Do any other commissioners have any comments? No? Well, I'm happy to open it up to any members of the public who'd like to make a comment or ask a question. Nellie. Oh, sorry. I just saw Nellie's hand.
Hi, Liz. Thanks for your presentation. I just wanted to make a comment that I think that it's really powerful to veil a monument like this with a kind of representation that it already has. And I actually, even as an artist, can you hear me, who works in projection, I wonder if the projection doesn't take away from the power of the kind of palimpsest that was just mentioned. I think that asking yourself questions about the erasure and really feeling it is so interesting in a way that I'm not sure that the projection is additive at this stage. Lighting would be so interesting to me to like make it even more iconic. So anyway, it calls to mind it's a lot of Paula Light's work, and I appreciate your presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Nellie. In some ways, that actually speaks to the fact that this will be just sitting on the common all during the day up until 6 o'clock when the projection will happen. So in some ways, your comment, a thought that we could be getting both the confrontation of this veiled monument and why and what does this mean, and a suggestion or an invitation for people to think about what this land was like for so many thousands of years and how we can have a better relationship to it ourselves today.
Erin, I see your hand.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. I just had a couple of questions for you. In centering the Native American story, there's a great responsibility to history, to reframe issues that impact tribal communities. And so I'm wondering what efforts have been made to work with diverse Native American tribes and include different tribal perspectives. Was there a process in place to work with tribal historians? I ask that because public representations can have stark political and economic impacts that go beyond the artwork itself. when they are of Native Americans or about Native Americans. For example, they can enforce stereotypical images of Native people, among a whole other array of things. So I'm curious about what your process was in, taking on this important responsibility.
Thank you for that, Erin. We did have several working groups, one of which was the founders and one of which was to research the history, the indigenous history of our parklands. And we worked initially with the Massachusetts tribe because of their occupation of this land for so many years. We also reached out to a Nipmuc leader who said, our story isn't really of Boston, so I would, defer to what you're doing. And then, to be frank, we did talk to some Wampanoag members, and it got a little complicated about how those stories intersect. Whose tribe is whom, and you know better than I do about the intertribal tensions and differences of opinion about, is a tribe a subset of another tribe, and how does this tribe, stack up next to the other tribe? What we tried to do here, respectfully, is to talk about land and land relationship to land, and a story that is about indigenous occupation of our parkland. So it isn't about, we do have the history that we have written both from primary sources and oral history about the history of Boston Common from 1630 to 1680, but that was sort of a background to our thinking. What we wanted to do here was to confront ourselves with, what does it mean to be shunted off to the left-hand side of a monument, and how can we center that story?
Thanks so much for that, Liz. I do think that the work that you and your organization are doing is important, but I also feel what Erin shared of incorporating more voices and doing yet more research to go back to the specificity is something that we can all ascribe to and push forward. Any other questions from the public? Well, hearing none, I'm curious if any commissioners would like to make a motion to approve this temporary artwork. Anyone?
I can move forward with a motion, making a motion to approve final design, revealing a deeper history at the Founders Monument.
Thanks, Brian. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Thanks, Diana. Commissioners, after I say your name, please say yes if you approve the motion. Cara?
I'm genuinely on the fence. I think I'm not sure that this sort of meets the, I'm not sure on the process, to Erin's point, and I totally understand that it's hard to include a lot of different voices, and but I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if this kind of meets the level of the the symbolic historic nature of this artwork. I wonder if there's like a maybe a part of it is like the explanatory text that goes with it. Like maybe we could look at that together as well, and just like the language that goes with this, and if it's kind of framed as a series of interventions and programs and education, like if it's kind of like this is the first in a lot of ways that our public spaces, or that the Common or Friends of the Public Art, like if it's part of kind of a bigger thing. And I get worried that people will see this and think, oh, this is the one intervention on this memorial that's happening, and it's going to then create like a lot of weight on it to speak to all things, and or be seen as like a city intervention. So just given that it's, representation of tribal communities and indigenous communities is like such a rich and complex thing that we want to get right. So I'm just wondering, like, what's the presentation of this so that people understand that it's a part of an ongoing process or part of a series of ways that people are being engaged. So I think I would be a yes if we could maybe take a look at what that language is going to be, just packaged a little bit more, so that we can feel comfortable about that.
Well, I wonder, Cara, to your point, given that this is set to be installed at the end of September and we don't have another BAC meeting, I guess I would turn to Karen and Paul about what possibilities we might have to see and review the didactic language that would accompany this installation.
I wonder if you might consider an approval pending revisiting didactic language. I think I also volunteered some suggested language at the beginning about who was speaking through the artwork. That might help clarify as well. So maybe by including that and then having a follow-up conversation, we might be able to find a way to approve it.
Carl, one question for you is if that language could be reviewed by the MOAC, would you be comfortable with that rather than coming back to the
and I'm not
full
trying
BAC?
to like create a whole bunch of barriers. I just want to make sure that our oversight of signing off on this includes just thinking about the total way in which it's presented to the public, in case there are some places where we can just couch it more as part of a series of what's happening. Because I know, Liz and team are doing, this is not the only thing that's happening. There's a lot of other efforts and process. So yeah, I'm happy to take a look at it and work with staff to take a look at it after this meeting. So I would be a yes, kind of pending that conversation or review of that text.
I think one question, I guess a parliamentary question is, Karen, to add that caveat, should we create another motion or can we add it to this current motion?
Brian, would you be willing to amend your motion?
Yes, so I think an amended motion would be an approval of final design pending review of didactic information by the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture team.
Thanks, Brian. And Diana, would you second that?
Yes, I second that.
Okay, great. So now, commissioners, if you agree with this new amended motion, please say yes. Cara?
Yes, thank you.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail? Abigail, are you there? Oh, I see you. You're trying to get I'll take, Abigail is motioning a thumbs up gesture, which I take to interpret as I approve. And I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes. Thanks so much, Liz. And thank you so much for working with the Mayor's Office on Culture on that language. As Cara said, I do think it's important that we get it right and that we represent these stories as specifically and best as we can. So moving on to the next project. The next project for review is the final design of a temporary artwork by Nellie Kate at Eggleston Square branch of the Boston Public Library in Roxbury as part of the Boston Public Art Triennial. Artist
John,
Nellie Kate, oh, excuse me.
Sorry, John, I'm actually going to interrupt you. We're going to skip to the next project and then go back to Nellie due to a time constraint by the next proponent.
Oh,
So,
sure. So
sorry about this.
Am I going to Johnson Gates?
Yes, we are.
The next project is regarding conservation work proposed for the Johnson Gates at the intersection of Westland Ave and Hemingway Street in Fenway. Maria Fukuda, Fenway Civic Association, will share more about this project.
Hi, thank you so much, and I apologize for having to rush to a meeting. Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to present. My name is Maria Fukuda, and I'm Open Space and Parks Committee co-chair at Fenway Civic Association, presenting our proposal today for the Johnson Gates Piers Repair and Protection Project in the Fenway. Next slide. The Johnson Memorial Gates are located in the east fenway at the corner of Westland Avenue and Hemingway Street and serve as the grand entrance and anchor to the Back Bay Fence portion of the Emerald Necklace Park system designed by Frederick Law Olmsted. Next slide. The gates are a three-part monument owned by the City of Boston, erected in 1902, designed by Guy Lowell, and gifted to the city by Ellen Cheney Johnson. Originally intended to be a drinking fountain for man and beast, with horse troughs along Hemingway Street and fountains at the piers, no water is a part of the monument today. Next slide. The next three slides will show the conditions we're seeking repair on. First, the left side of the photo shows a poorly tooled cover placed on the fountain during the park's capital restoration in 2019. The right side shows eroded mortar joints. And next slide. The left side of the next photo shows rust staining of the north pier emanating from embedded metal, and the right side small Dutchman repairs at the south base. The last slide shows further failed Dutchman repairs, again occurring at the corners of the monument plinths. Next slide. The flat plinths at the north and south basins show results of impact from vehicles, with city trucks entering the park for seasonal trash and snow removal and other maintenance. Next slide. Our history with the project started in 2013 when community concerns about the monument's condition led us to fund a conditions assessment and treatment recommendation report. We first secured funding to repair large structural cracks in the troughs flanking Hemingway Street, conducted by Ivan Meijer, and conservation of the bronze components by Rika McNally. Our final work in 2018 and 19 led to the securing of $200,000 in community preservation funds, with another approximately $70,000 in BPDA grant funding. Subsequently, which was administered for repairs as part of the Boston Parks and Recreation Department's capital restoration of the park and monument in 2019 and 2020. Next slide. Today, as you saw in the previous slides, masonry repairs have failed and continued vehicular impact has increased damage at the corners of the piers. Through two grants from the George B. Henderson Foundation and the BPGA, we're able to propose repairs and protection that we hope will assure repair and long-term protection of the monument. We selected fallen waterproofing because of their background and expertise in historic conservation. Project materials were submitted to you as part of the application, but please let me know if you require any other information. Next slide. The project and sequencing would start with cleaning of masonry, Dutchman repairs with threaded rods, which weren't included in the previous repair, removal of embedded ferrous metal, and patching of surfaces. Next slide. Deteriorated mortar joints will be cleaned and repointed, and 4 bollards, 2 at the corner of each pier base, installed to prevent future vehicular impacts. Next slide. Existing materials will be reused for Dutchman repairs where possible, as in the bottom right of the photo, but where not possible, the pink sample at the top right will be used to best match the Tennessee pink marble that is part of the original monument. Next slide. Coated cast iron bollards will be installed 2 feet away from the plinth edges as depicted in the next slide. And accessibility will be maintained in their placement. The timeline will have work commencing and completed in September pending BAC approval. Project has gone through city permitting and secured needed permissions, as well as approval from Boston Landmarks Commission and Boston Parks and Recreation, with a construction access and license agreement provided by Parks. The following team is ready to mobilize as soon as approval is granted by the BAC. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marie. I open it up to any commissioners who have questions or comments for Marie.
I just have a question in regards to, like, do we consider these a part of the artwork? Is that, is that a question, or like, would we be thinking of these as part of the installation of the work, I guess is my question.
So previously, conservation work, as it was related to the Johnson Gate, specifically about the lions that are at the kind of point of the on the ground of the Johnson Gates, were under review of commission, and part of this return to the commission was because of the failed masonry that did not go through the commission in 2020. So I think in order to have quality conservation work, we would appreciate the commission being able to consider this object part of the collection in order and receive conservation on that level.
Thanks, Paul. Diana?
Thank you, Marie, for the presentation. A question I have is for your granite selection. Was that photograph taken outside during the daytime, or was it an interior photo? It's hard to tell how it sort of
That was an
how close it
interior
is to the
photo.
existing.
Yeah, that was an interior photo by Fallon. Corey McHenry, who's the project lead at Fallon, is proposing to bring all the materials to site and asked me to, if there was interest, to invite the commissioners to come if anyone would like to see.
Okay, great. I guess the only comment I would make is that there's a lot more of that sort of darker veining in the granite selection than the existing, or at least it's hard to tell here from the existing granite base. So it may be something to just explore a little bit, and it may actually look okay once you're out there and outside, and it may be a little bit closer, but that's something that does read to me as a little bit of a distinction from the original. And especially a question I do have, is there another pillar that is going to have that existing granite, just because it, you may be able to pick up that difference with the darker veining more than I think you intend.
I guess what I should do then is to request a follow-up site visit with Fallon to bring those out, take a look at all of the areas of Dutchman repair and ensure that we're making the right match. My understanding is that the pink is a special order while the left two are just in stock. So we can take a look and then report back.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Diana. I'd now like to open it up to any members of the public who might have a comment or a question. Hearing none, I wonder if any commissioner would like to make a motion to approve this conservation project at Johnson Gates. Diana, I wonder if you would, with the caveat of matching, however you'd like to say that.
Yes, I was going to take a first pass at it. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the Johnson Gates Conservation Project with a proviso that the granite selected is reviewed on site as a mock-up prior to final selection to enable closest match to existing stone.
And just to be specific, Diana, who would you feel comfortable reviewing that? Just the project managers?
I think the project managers.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Yes, I will second.
Thanks so much, James. Commissioners, after I state your name, please say yes if you approve the motion. Cara?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail? I'm getting a thumbs up again. That means yes. And I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes. Thanks so much for bringing this to us, Marie. And I hope you get to your meeting on time.
Thank you all so much.
So now I believe we'll move backwards to our next presentation, a temporary artwork by Nellie Kate at Eggleston Square branch of the Boston Public Library in Roxbury as part of the Boston Public Art Triennial. And Nellie Kate will speak more about this project.
Hello, thanks to the commissioners for the opportunity to present this work into the ground, into the body for your consideration. This is a project that was enabled by the Boston Public Art Triennial Accelerator Fund, and I'm so delighted to share it with you. Next slide. Next slide, yeah. I'm a working artist in the greater Boston area, and I embody the experience of a queer, late deaf person who's Puerto Rican American and raised in the American South. And these things show up in my work in this project because I have an expanded practice in sound that treats access as a site for poetic translation. You can go to the next slide. My project called Into the Ground, Into the Body is a bench and a fountain that support alternative healing modalities and decenter hearing experience of sound using mostly inaudible frequencies to vibrate the back of a bench and the water in a fountain in front of the bench. You can go to the next slide. The project is located at Eggleston Square Branch Public Library in Roxbury. And one of the reasons why I chose this site, there are many reasons, I'd be happy to talk about more, but one of the reasons that I was excited about this site, aside from the fact that the piece is located in the garden in the back of the library, is that I learned that this library will be torn down and renovated in the end of 2025. And so something that I felt moved by was how important it felt to share this work as a placekeeping initiative. And I really loved how many local schools and neighbors could walk to this library. I also have a deep connection to libraries broadly. And when I shared this project with Ekoa Holmes, who's also a public artist in Boston, she just shared with me about how meaningful this place was to her as a community hub. So we can go to the next slide. I've been working closely with the Friends Group and the branch librarian to develop this project. I've worked in the gardens with them and attended some of the meetings that they have to understand what the need or interest in a work like this would be. Previously, there was a piece on the location of the site where I requested that this piece be cited, and since then the piece was removed, and that was because the community felt that they wanted to have a space for being able to sit again. Many of the benches in that area had been broken and the shades were starting to fall, and so I proposed this work. You can go to the next slide. The piece is meant to open on this Thursday, September 12th. And during the unveiling celebration, there will be some speeches about the work, some music and snacks. And one of the things that I feel like this piece is doing is becoming a bridge into the community, offering a variety of accessibility features, including ASL interpretation, Spanish interpretation, audio description features that will be accessible on a mini site, cited guides on site to guide anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about the site who is blind or low vision, and interpretive text on the plaque in Braille. And I put a shout out to Olivia Reinenbach, who is my communications and access lead, who's been working on that with me. You can go to the next slide. There are a couple of letters of support in a folder that I provided for the commissioners to review. And these are just a few of the notes from the folks who wrote me letters of recommendation. What I really learned through the process of working with the librarian and the Friends is that it feels like an expansion on work that they're already trying to do and work they're trying to continue doing until the renovation of this site. So you can go to the next slide. It's also Deaf Awareness Month, and the librarian has already put out a selection of materials about deaf experience and deaf culture, as well as disability justice. Next slide. The installation would happen tomorrow. We've already assembled everything, and there's no special equipment needed, just to unload a truck. And then the opening celebration would be on Thursday, September 12th from 4 to 6 p.m. There would be also a sound bath called Vibrational Pause by Marlene Boyette later in this month. Marlene is somebody that I've worked with on projects in the past, and I'm so delighted to give her space to be a part of this work. Next slide. So the project is made from repurposed 55-gallon steel barrels that have been converted into these pieces of furniture. If you look at my work, which is on my website, nellycape.net, you'll see that this is a recurring medium for me. I have a pretty strong ethos around not making new waste as an artist. I think that we have a responsibility to consider the materials that we use, and this is why I've chosen these. They're also really resonant for sound. So the installation and maintenance would be handled by me and the library staff, as well as the friends. And I would check on the site weekly to make sure that any maintenance is going well. I'll also have umbrella insurance for this. I have many replacement parts on hand, including the electronics that run sound through the piece. Next slide. You can see here how the construction looks of this piece. There's a cymatics tray with a transducer affixed to the bottom. That fountain is quite complex, but it gives us the opportunity to access the transducer and do maintenance to it while also keeping it separate from any electronical, hazard with water. Then you'll also see that there's transducers in the back of the bench. There's 2 of them in the bench. And then the DAC, which is the audio control, and all of the amps are in the base of one of the seats, which are locked using the rings of the actual barrels as a part of the locking mechanism. So that's that. Next slide. I appreciate the opportunity to share this work with you and talk about it, and I hope that I can see some of you at the opening this week. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks so much, Nellie. It's a really interesting project. Thanks for bringing it to us. I open it up to commissioners for any questions or comments.
John, I do have one question as it's being installed tomorrow. What are we voting on?
I believe we are voting on final design for this project. I too was curious that it came to us the day before install, but here we are.
I will say we are asking for applications to come in earlier, and we're going to have a follow-up conversation with the applicant about that soon for this reason.
I was hoping to be on the docket sooner, but in the summer, the meeting that I was hoping to join was canceled. And so I was encouraged to try to be considerate of the process and also to move forward with the timeline.
I'd also just like to clarify that if we had received a proposal on the before the presentation deadline date, we would have moved forward with an August Art Commission meeting. By the deadline, we had not received a proposal and thusly took a summer recess.
Leo, I see your hand, but really quickly, I just am curious if any other commissioners had a question or comment about this project.
Ellen, I would just say thanks for your presentation. It sounds like a cool kind of sensory experience. And maybe just a question for you, kind of what are you hoping, a participant to get out of their kind of experience with the piece? Cool things happening. I'm excited to hear more about the experience of it.
Thanks, Brian. I really hope that this piece feels like it grounds people into themselves and into the earth. The situation of this bench is low enough to the ground, but also high enough that it's accessible so that it will invite people to feel the closeness to the earth and also to feel the resonant vibration through their body as a kind of embodiment. That's my hope. That is peaceful and grounding.
Cool. Thank you, Nellie.
I'll now open it up to members of the public. Leo, did you want to make a comment?
Redundant. I just was going to mention some of the things that Karen and Paul already did.
Okay. Any other members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment? Well, I feel like we can move to a motion. I move to approve final design for Into the Ground, Into the Body by Nellie Kate at Eggleston Square Branch Library. Do I have a second?
I would second that.
Thanks, Brian. Commissioners, after I say your name, please say yes if you approve the motion. Cara,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Abigail. I'm looking for the thumbs up. There it is. I see it. And I'm a yes as well. So congratulations, Nellie. The motion passes and you can begin installation tomorrow.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much for the review.
No, but it's a great project. Congratulations. And I know we're all excited to experience it.
Thank you.
I believe we have 3 or 4 more projects, but I hope these will go quickly so we can get through them all. So the next presentation for review today is the accessioning of a long-term mural by Israel Guerrero Romero, also known as Spike, at the Curtis Guild Elementary School in East Boston as part of the Canvas of Culture initiative. Alexander Paul Zotov, Public Art Registrar, will introduce the project.
Paul, I think you're on mute.
That'd be helpful. Hi all. Thank you, Commissioner. Just for a little bit of background about the next round of acceptances to the collection that we're going to have. The Canvas of Culture Art Call to Artists was first released in February of this year. And after an extensive artist selection and painting process with MOAC, the BAC, and our partners from Boston Public Schools, we're very excited to begin the process of welcoming these artworks into our collection. First of all, I'd like to give a big thank you to Jake Lacey, the Assistant Director of Strategic Facilities Initiatives, who has been a tremendous help in facilitating this entire process. We'd also like to give a big shout out to our BPS students, teachers, admin, and staff who has helped make these artworks truly possible. And of course, an extra big, huge appreciation for the work of our mural consultant, Liza Quinones. The first mural design that we will be accessioning today, hopefully is on the facade of the Curtis Guild Elementary School in East Boston. Spike is a renowned artist from Tulum, Mexico. Over the last couple of months, he has been in Boston conducting community engagement sessions with the schools and working closely with the Guild's administration and staff. The Guild Elementary School had expressed interest in artworks that evoke a warm, welcoming atmosphere, celebrating diversity, vibrant flowers, multilingualism, and the school's core values: kindness, community, creativity, respect, excellence, affirming each student's heritage and potential. And here it is, the final mural. We'd like to mention that there is one design change where the mural orientation has been flipped. And other than that, everything is the same as the final design that was presented in the BAC meeting. Our maintenance plan is pretty straightforward, where it'll have a visual inspection biannually, check for damage, fading, or any vandalism, as well as every frequent 5 years, have an evaluation by a professional with gentle cleaning, which is as needed based on environmental conditions, which would be power wash with varnish only. There is a varnish reapplication that is recommended by the manufacturer, and just a few references, which is the dimensions and the paint selection here. With that, we would like to move forward with accessioning this mural.
Great. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Any questions or comments from the public? Would any commissioner like to make a motion to accept this piece into our collection?
I'll make a motion to accept this artwork into our collection, the Curtis Guild Elementary School.
Thanks, James. Do I have a second? I'll be the second. Commissioners, after I state your name, please say yes if you approve the motion. Cara?
Yes.
Diana? Are you there, Diana? Did you have to go? I think we still have a quorum. Brian?
I'm a yes.
James?
I would be a yes.
And Abigail?
That's a yes, and I'm so sorry for my technical problems this
Oh,
evening.
no, that's okay. And I'm a yes as well, so we still have a quorum and the motion passes. Great news, this addition to our collection. The next presentation for review is the acceptance of a long-term interior mural by Felipe Ortiz at Mario Umana Academy in East Boston as part of the Campus of Culture initiative. And again, Alexandra Paul-Zotov will introduce the project.
We're very excited to present this mural by local artist Felipe Ortiz. His design graces a 72 by 12 interior wall located within the Umana Academy's multi-purpose community room. The Umana Academy expressed interest in an artwork that celebrates bilingualism, dual immersion, emphasizing the school's commitment to inclusivity and respect for diverse languages, including nonverbal communication. They wanted to reflect the joy of learning in a multi-generational, multi-ethnic community way, connected to Boston's unique cultural tapestry and embodying the school's core values of bilingualism, respect, inclusivity, and joy. And here is the artwork. In this mural, guardians are depicted in a communal gathering, playing their instruments together in a harmonious celebration. This representation not only honors the Andean cultural beliefs, but also resonates with the mural's location in a music room, highlighting the universal language of music and the joy of communal gathering. So once again, here is the maintenance plan that has been outlined, as well as the dimensions and material outline.
Thanks, Paul. I now open it up to commissioners for questions or comments about this mural. Now, any members of the general public who'd like to make a comment? Hearing none, would any commissioner like to make a motion to accept this mural into the collection?
I'll make a motion to accept Amana Rising into the Boston Art Commission collection.
Thanks, Brian. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Cara. After I state your name, commissioner, please say yes if you approve the motion. Cara?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes, and yet another amazing artwork in our collection. The next presentation for review is the acceptance of a long-term exterior mural by Sylvia Lopez Chavez at the Rafael Hernandez K-8 Dual Language School located in Roxbury as part of the Campus of Culture initiative. Again, Alexandra Paul-Zotov will introduce the project.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next mural is by local artist Sylvia Lopez Chavez. Her design graces the exterior facade of the main entrance of the Hernandez. At the school, culture and representation of the bilingual community is very important. They express interest in an artwork that embraces the school's core values, BRIA, bilingualism, respect, individualism, and more. And the mural is bright and colorful and inviting while expressing love, joy, community, and celebration. Within the demographic of the school itself, the students are predominantly Latinx, Dominican, and Puerto Rican. And inspired by words, sounds, and movement gathered during a school visit by the artist, the concept is anchored in the positive vibe and words of encouragement that the school is centered on: care, nurture, love, inclusivity, and community, and bilingualism. The focal point is two children representing two different age groups, playfully connecting through a piggyback hug and bright smiles. The children are set on a garden of flowers with colorful rays of light flowing from the top. And right here, once again, maps out our maintenance plan for it, as well as references all of the dimensions and materials for our reference.
Thanks again, Paul. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Now, members of the general public, any questions or comments? Well, would a commissioner like to make a motion?
John, I'd like to make a motion to approve. I'm sorry, how do I pronounce this?
Is it Bria?
Bria, okay, Bria as a long-term mural, as part of the Canvas of Culture initiative.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thanks, James. Commissioner, after I state your name, please say yes if you approve the motion. Cara,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Abigail,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes.
Thank you, Paul.
So happy to have you. Our next presentation, and I believe final, nope, we have two more, of a long-term exterior mural by David Don Rimex Sepulveda at Lee Academy located in Dorchester as part of the Canvas of Culture initiative. Alexandra Paul-Zotov will introduce.
The next mural for acceptance is by Puerto Rican artist David Don Rimex, who is joined by his design showcases the exterior facade of the Lee Academy on both the left and right side of the school's main entrance. At the left side, the Lee Academy will undergo renovations, building an exploratory play area for its youngest students, as with the new mural as its backdrop. At the right side, they will also have under renovations for an outdoor nature area for its older students, grades 1 through 3. Lee Academy had expressed interest in an artwork that resonated with early childhood students, such as playful depictions of nature, gardening, and the school mascot, the honeybee, and evolves into an artwork that reflects the growing maturity of the students with elements that represent the African diaspora and Latinx communities. And here it is. The twin murals show the diversity of the students through bright and lively art. On the left is a mural with a young boy that encourages the youngest learners to explore and grow. This blends into the mural at the right, where a young girl stands as a symbol of strength, highlighting the school's focus on cultural inclusion. Together, these murals help all students feel a part of the school community and valued in their educational journey. And right here to our left, we have our standard maintenance plan, as well as our paint and materials for reference.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that cheese puff is a color included in this mural. Commissioners, any comments or questions?
Just a comment. I remember seeing this come for, I think, preliminary design, and one of my questions was how the artist was thinking about kind of interacting with architectural elements available on the building. And just kudos to the artist team for kind of incorporating those well and arriving at a mural that I think kind of blends the architecture and the mural itself nicely together. So kudos.
Thanks, Brian. I see that Liza appreciates your comment as well. Any other commissioners? Now, any members of the public who'd like to make a comment or ask a question? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve acceptance of Garden of Beginnings and Roots of Empowerment at the Lee Academy Pilot School into the Boston Public Art Collection. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who said? Was that you, Brian?
Second, yes.
Okay, perfect. After I state your name, Commissioner, please say yes if you approve the motion. Cara?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So now we'll move on to our final presentation. Under the Canvas of Culture initiative is the final design of a long-term exterior mural by Thomas Detour Evans at the Joyce Kilmer K-8 Lower School located in West Roxbury. Alexander Paul Zotov will introduce.
Thank you, Commissioner. Together We Rise is a mural by Denver-based artist Thomas Detour Evans. His design illuminates the exterior facade of the Kilmer Lower K-8 Lower School facing its playground in West Roxbury. The Kilmer expressed interest in artwork that included celebrating inclusivity, diversity in the school's core values, respect, responsibility, and empathy. They wanted an artwork that was bright, affirming, and embodying the themes of love, growth, and transition that reflects their students and promotes a sense of belonging and unity within the community. A design change occurred with this addition of a new child, which you can see on the far right. This design features large portraits as a main focus, aiming to be iconic while promoting diversity, equity, and unity. The portraits show the children looking upward, capturing a sense of wonder and aspiration. The background uses vibrant colors to highlight the portraits and includes silhouettes of children celebrating and playing, emphasizing a sense of community. The lower part of the design lists the Kilmer's core values: respect, responsibility, empathy, inclusion, and equity, which the school tries to instill in every student. And here we are with our maintenance plan, as well as any material reference.
Thanks, Paul. Any commissioners with a question or comment?
I just want to know, John, that the colors are really wonderful on this mural. I think the different tones being used here work so well, especially with some of the architectural elements of that facade.
Yeah, Diana, it's really vibrant. I agree. Any other commissioners?
Just to comment, about this piece, but then in all of the works that we've looked at on the murals so far. I know we're moving through these pretty quickly, but just to call out all of the work that's gone into these murals, it's a lot of work to make a piece like this happen, both by the artist, but then also within the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture team too. So much administrative work goes into making all of these projects happen. So even though we're moving through these quickly, just want to kind of highlight the work that's happened in making all of this possible.
Brian, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to do that at the end, but I'd also like to give a shout out to Liza Quinones as well, who I know is here, and she did a tremendous amount of work to make these things happen. And it's a thrill to add all of these to our collection. So now I'd like to open it up to any members of the public who'd like to make a comment. Hearing none, would any commissioner like to make a motion to accept this mural into our collection?
I can make a motion to accept Together We Rise into the collection of the Boston Art Commission.
Thanks, Brian. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Cara. After I state your name, Commissioner, please say yes if you agree with the motion. Cara?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes. An amazing amount of projects that we've seen today. A lot of really great work, both being accepted into our collection and temporary works that respond to many things that are on people's minds and different stories to tell. So our last order of business today is to adjourn. So would any commissioner like to make a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Thanks, James. I feel like that's always a great way to end it. You coming in with your motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Brian. After I state your name, please say yes if you agree with the motion. Cara?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. And look at that, 6:29. We did a good job, y'all.
Good job.
Enjoy the rest of September. See you in October. And thanks for all the work.